She was her sister's shadow, until envy turned her into a silent killer. R.A.T didn't want to borrow, she wanted to take everything, the love, the land, the life. But poison has a memory, and betrayal has a price. This is the story of how one woman tried to steal a future, and found herself buried in regret. Will forgiveness bloom where bitterness once grew? The bitter root of R.A.T, a story of envy, punishment, and redemption. In the sun-kissed village of Ebolonga, there lived two sisters, R.A.T and Wima. Though born of the same mother, their hearts beat with different drums. Wima was gentle, soft-spoken, and generous. R.A.T, on the other hand, was fiery, cunning, and driven by envy. Wima had married a humble, hard-working man named Boya. Together, they built a beautiful home surrounded by gardens and joy. They had no children yet, but their laughter filled every corner of their compound. R.A.T, unmarried and living with their aging mother, often visited Wima, but not with love in her heart. She watched Wima's life with narrowed eyes, her smile tight with resentment. Why her, she often asked herself. Why not me? R.A.T's bitterness grew stronger with each visit. Wima's home was thriving, their livestock fat, their granary full. Boya adored Wima openly, something R.A.T had never known from a man. One evening, as Wima served roasted groundnuts and fresh passion juice, R.A.T could barely swallow. The sweetness in the air was poison to her jealous soul. Her eyes danced over the expensive curtains, the new radio on the shelf, the silver bangles on Wima's wrist. That night, R.A.T sat alone in her hut, whispering to the wind, I should have had it all. If only she were gone. R.A.T began spending more time at Wima's home. She cooked, cleaned, even brought small gifts. Wima, innocent and trusting, welcomed her sister warmly. It's good to have family around, she said. But R.A.T wasn't just observing anymore, she was plotting. In the shadows, she spoke to a local herbalist known for his special powders. Something silent, something that works slowly, she whispered. The man, half drunk and greedy, sold her a small pouch of white powder. R.A.T smiled coldly. Soon, everything will be mine. The small pouch of poison rested in R.A.T's basket like a ticking secret. She stared at it often, her thoughts dancing between guilt and greed. Just a pinch, the herbalist had said, and they'll sleep forever. R.A.T visited Wima the next day, helping in the kitchen and singing softly as they prepared groundnuts too. Her fingers trembled slightly as she reached for the spice tin. Now, a voice inside her urged. Now, before you lose your courage. But Wima's warm smile caught her off guard. You've become such a blessing, sister, Wima said, squeezing her hand. For a fleeting moment, R.A.T's heart cracked, but not enough. It was a quiet Tuesday evening when R.A.T decided to strike. Wima and Boya were seated on their porch, and R.A.T offered to make them tea. She prepared everything as usual, then added the faintest trace of powder to Wima's cup. As she handed over the mugs, her heart pounded like a drum in a storm. Wima took a sip and smiled. You've made it just right. R.A.T washed. But before the cup was half empty, Boya reached for it. Let me taste my wife's too, he joked, taking a quick sip. Panic surged through R.A.T, but she kept her face still. That night, R.A.T couldn't sleep. She lay in her mother's hut, drenched in sweat, listening to the distant barking of dogs and wondering if Wima or Boya would wake up in pain, or at all. Morning came with the cry of a rooster. R.A.T rushed to Wima's home under the guise of bringing firewood. To her shock and confusion, both Wima and Boya were awake, healthy, even cheerful. She smiled nervously as Boya handed her a banana. Your tea was strong, he laughed. I dreamt I was flying. R.A.T's stomach turned. Did the powder fail? Or did I not add enough? That evening, as R.A.T walked home through the maize fields, an old woman stopped her. She was bent with age, her eyes like pale marbles. "The wind whispers strange things about you," she said softly. "Your shadow has grown heavy." Nayatika froze. "I don't know what you mean." The old woman chuckled darkly. "When a sister poisons a sister, the earth listens. And the earth never forgets." Nayatika walked faster, her basket clutched tightly. But her hands trembled, and the wind seemed to whisper her name. Frustrated, Nayatika decided to try again. This time, she increased the amount of powder, just slightly. The opportunity came quickly. Wima had asked her to prepare porridge for their breakfast. "Boya worked hard yesterday," Wima said. "Make it sweet and thick." Nayatika stirred the pot slowly, her eyes fixed on the boiling surface. This time, she split the mixture, serving only the tainted portion to Wima. But fate had other plans. Before anyone could eat, a neighbor's child ran into the house crying. There had been a snake near the fence. In the panic, the porridge spilled to the floor. Nayatika stood in silent rage. Another failure. People in the village began to notice how often Nayatika visited Wima's house now. A few whispered that she had changed, that her smiles were stiff and her eyes too watchful. An elderly woman named Mama Nanjola cornered her one afternoon. "Your visits aren't from love," she said plainly. "We were born in the same sun, Nayatika. I see what others pretend not to." Nayatika forced a laugh. "You've been watching too many ghosts, Mama." But deep inside, she knew the village eyes were starting to shift. After her third attempt also failed, this time when Boya gave the food to a stray dog who died within minutes, Boya began to suspect something was wrong. He said nothing, but he and Wima set a trap. They invited Nayatika for a weekend visit. "You've done so much for us," Wima said, "stay and rest with us." Nayatika agreed, thinking it would finally give her the chance to finish the deed. But in the shadows of the compound, Boya quietly met with the village chief. "I don't want to believe it," he said. "But my wife's sister may be trying to kill us." Nayatika settled into the guest hut for the weekend, unaware that extra eyes were watching. Boya had asked a trusted friend, Uma the night guard, to keep an eye on things discreetly. From the shadows, Uma saw everything: the pacing, the suspicious glances, the early morning sneaking. Nayatika woke early Sunday morning and crept into the kitchen before dawn. She stirred the millet porridge with calm focus, and once again, reached into her hidden pouch. Uma, crouched in the corner behind the water tank, saw it all. That morning, Wima brought the porridge to the table herself. "Sister, you always cook for us. Today, we serve you." Her voice was warm, but her heart was alert. Boya sat down, thanked Nayatika with a smile, and lifted the cup to his lips. Just before drinking, he paused. "Nayatika, you taste first." Nayatika froze. "Me? Why?" "Just for fun," Wima added quickly. "We want to know if you've improved your cooking." Nayatika's hands trembled. She forced a sip, but didn't swallow. Boya noticed. Wima saw it too. A storm of truth was coming. Later that day, the village chief arrived at the homestead with 2 guards. Wima and Boya had reported the poisoning attempts and handed over the cup Nayatika had touched. The chief's men also retrieved the spilled porridge from the day before, now hardened at the kitchen edge. "Nayatika, we have questions," the chief said, voice firm. Nayatika laughed nervously. "About what? Is it wrong to cook for family?" Boya stepped forward, eyes filled with restrained fury. "Is it family to kill silently? To poison with a smile?" Nayatika's heart pounded. She realized she was no longer the predator, but the prey. The chief ordered the porridge remains and the pouch from Nayatika's belongings to be taken to the village herbalist for analysis. Within hours, the answer came: a slow-acting poison, lethal if consumed in continuous doses. The truth shattered the calm of Wima's home. Neighbors gathered, some in disbelief, others nodding as if they had long suspected. "I trusted you," Wima whispered, tears streaming down her cheeks. "You were my sister." Naetika remained silent. Her world was collapsing, brick by brick. That evening, under a purple twilight sky, Naetika was arrested. Her wrists were tied gently, as the village believed in dignity even for the guilty. She was paraded through the marketplace, where once she had walked with pride. Children stared. Elders whispered. Friends looked away. As the guards led her away, Naetika shouted, "She stole the life I deserved. I only wanted what should have been mine." But no one responded. Her words floated in the wind, angry, bitter, and hollow. News reached Naetika's mother by dusk. The old woman collapsed to her knees, wailing loudly. "Where did I go wrong? I raised daughters, not murderers." She went to see Wima the next day, her eyes swollen from tears. "Forgive me," she pleaded. "Forgive us." Wima took her hand and held it tightly. "You raised us in the same house, Mama. But the heart chooses its own path." The mother wept in silence. Grief had come not through death, but betrayal. Naetika was taken to the women's prison in Kisoko. Her life changed overnight. No soft beds. No privacy. No sweet tea or laughter. Just metal bars and the cold sting of regret. She was placed in a cell with others, some hardened, some innocent. But none welcomed her. "Poisoner," they whispered. Each day, Naetika watched the sun rise through iron bars and wondered, was the envy worth it? The trial began 2 weeks later. Wima and Boya sat at the front, flanked by friends and neighbors. The courtroom was packed. Naetika stood, silent as evidence was presented, the herbalist's testimony, Uma's eyewitness account, the powder samples, and the poisoned porridge. When asked to speak, Naetika simply said, "I wanted what was mine. That's all." Her voice was cold. But the judge's voice was colder. The court found her guilty of attempted murder and conspiracy to commit murder. The judge's words rang like iron bells, 10 years imprisonment. Gasps echoed across the courtroom. Some said it was too lenient. Others wept for the broken bond between sisters. Naetika didn't cry. She stared blankly ahead. Her dreams of owning Wima's land, her home, her happiness, crumbled like ash in the wind. Days turned into weeks. Naetika learned the harsh rhythm of prison life. She cleaned toilets, peeled cassava, and slept on a thin mat. But the worst prison was in her mind. She kept seeing Wima's face, not angry, not vengeful, just broken. One night, she stared at the ceiling and whispered, "I could have asked for help. Why didn't I?" And from the silence, only regret answered. In prison, Naetika was assigned to share a cell with a woman named Shaku, a former market thief who had served 7 years. Shaku was sharp, observant, and unafraid to speak truth. "You walk around here like you're the only one who's lost something," Shaku said one evening. "But pain isn't a crown. You poison blood, Naetika. That's different." Naetika turned away in silence. But that night, her dreams showed her a younger Wima, running barefoot through mango trees, calling her name. Months passed before Naetika gathered the courage to write a letter to Wima. It was short and trembling with guilt. "I do not ask for your forgiveness, because I don't know if I deserve it. But every day I sit in this cold, I remember your warmth. I was blind with envy. I am sorry." She gave it to a prison officer to deliver. Whether it reached or was read, she never knew. But writing it felt like removing a thorn from her chest. Every month, prisoners were allowed visitors. Some women received children, mothers, even lovers. Naetika sat on the same bench each time, staring at the gate. No one ever came. She stopped waiting after the 6th month, but each time the gate creaked, her heart still skipped, hoping, then breaking. The pain of loneliness was deeper than any jail sentence. Outside the prison, Wima's life was not easy. Though the danger had passed, the betrayal lingered. Her neighbors looked at her with pity, some with suspicion. Maybe you provoked her, some whispered. Boya tried to shield her, but Wima had changed. She trusted fewer people. Her laughter was softer now. Sometimes she'd stare at her compound and feel only silence. Her sister had nearly taken her life, and something inside her had died anyway. On a cloudy afternoon in Nayatikai's 2nd year in prison, someone finally appeared at the gate. It wasn't Wima. It was Mama. Her back was bent, her eyes dull with sorrow. She sat across from Nayatikai, saying little. "I've buried my pride to see you," Mama finally said. "I still don't understand what went so wrong in your heart." Nayatikai tried to speak but tears came first. For once, they sat together, just mother and daughter, no judgment, no poison, no pride. The prison ran a small farming program, where inmates tended to a communal garden. Nayatikai joined without thinking much of it. As she dug the earth, she felt something shift in her, memories of childhood, planting maize with Wima under the sun, racing home with muddy feet. The soil did not judge her. It let her walk, sweat, and hope. That night, she wrote again to Wima. "I planted something today. I don't know what it will become. But it reminded me of you." One night, Nayatikai found Shaku quietly weeping in her bed. "My son died while I was in here," Shaku said. "And I missed his funeral." "I'm sorry," Nayatikai said softly. Shaku looked at her. "Forgive before death comes, Nayatikai. Or you'll carry regret even into the grave." Those words haunted her. She began to pray, not for freedom, but for peace. A year later, a guard handed Nayatikai a faded envelope. It was from Wima. "I read your letters. I still cry sometimes. But I believe people can change. I won't visit. But I don't wish you harm anymore." Nayatikai read it over and over, holding it like a child's hand. It wasn't forgiveness, not fully, but it was no longer hatred. She breathed deeply. For the first time in years, she felt light. One morning, Shaku was called. Her sentence was complete. She packed quietly, then looked at Nayatikai. "You're not the woman who came in here 2 years ago," she said. "When you walk out someday, walk straight. No turning back." Nayatikai nodded. "Thank you for helping me face myself." Shaku smiled and disappeared into freedom. And Nayatikai turned back to her garden, planting spinach beneath the morning sun. Nayatikai began helping younger inmates. She taught them how to clean, how to cook, how to listen. The guards noticed her change. One even said, "You've become different. If only you were like this out there." Nayatikai answered quietly, "Pain is a cruel teacher. But it teaches deeply." She had years left to serve, but something in her spirit had already been set free. It rained heavily that night. Nayatikai sat by the barred window, letting the mist hit her cheeks. The other women cursed the storm, but she welcomed it. To her, the rain was memory and mercy. It reminded her of washing her feet as a child, of dancing with Wima barefoot under mango trees. Now, the same rain fell on prison walls. It couldn't cleanse the past, but it softened it. That night, Nayatikai dreamed she was back home. Wima was cooking, Mama humming beside the fire. Everything was peaceful, until the food turned to ash in her mouth, and Wima looked at her with hollow eyes. She awoke shaking. Some wounds, she realized, don't heal in silence. They must be spoken. They must be confessed. She asked the prison chaplain to let her speak during Sunday service. He agreed. In the prison chapel, Nayatikai stood before the women she'd lived among for years. I tried to kill my own blood, she said. Not with anger, but with envy. I didn't want her life, I wanted her light. And I thought taking it would give me peace. The room was silent. Some cried. Others nodded. One woman whispered, "You said what I never could." And for the first time, Nayatikai felt her shame begin to breathe, and then begin to release. Outside the prison, Wima was fighting her own quiet battles. Though she had forgiven Nayatikai on paper, her heart still flinched at the thought of her. Sometimes, she'd stare at the old kettle Nayatikai once gifted her, wondering if it too held poison. Trauma, she had learned, was like smoke, it lingered in corners long after the fire was gone. Still, she prayed every night. For peace. For closure. For her sister. One morning, a letter came to the prison gates. Nayatikai's mother had passed away in her sleep. Permission was denied for her to attend the burial. She wept alone in her cell, her sobs shaking the walls. "I poisoned my family and missed my mother's death," she whispered. "May my hands never forget this weight." But in her grief, a new hunger was born, not just for freedom, but for reconciliation. Nayatikai began working in the prison sewing room. She stitched dresses and shirts for orphans, learning how to fix what was once torn. She found therapy in thread. "When you mend cloth," she said to another inmate, "you learn how to mend yourself." Each hemline felt like healing. Each repair reminded her that not all broken things must be discarded. One day, a familiar voice called her name at the visitor station. It was Boya. She stood frozen, unsure of how to speak. But Boya simply looked at her and said, "Wima sent me." "She's pregnant now," he added, smiling softly. "You'll be an aunt." Nayatikai broke down in tears. Not from jealousy, but from overwhelming gratitude that life still moved forward. Boya handed her a letter sealed in a pink envelope. It was Wima's handwriting. "You tried to kill me. But you could not kill my love for you. I have cried, I have healed, and I have decided, when you come out, our door will be open. Not the same as before, but open." Nayatikai held the letter close to her chest. For years, she dreamed of freedom. Now, she dreamed of redemption. Time passed. Seasons changed. Nayatikai's sentence crept toward its end. Her name was now spoken with gentleness among inmates. She led prayer circles, helped new prisoners adjust, and became a quiet leader. The guards began to trust her. "If all prisoners changed like you," one said, "we would build fewer cells." But Nayatikai didn't seek praise. She only wanted to walk out one day, and walk forward, not back. Then it came. Her name on the list. Release, in 30 days. She sat in her bed that night, staring at the moon through the window grill. "I poisoned my sister, but I am not just that. I am more." She didn't know what her return home would look like. She feared the whispers. She feared Wima's eyes. But she also believed, deeply, that no one is beyond the reach of grace. On her last night in prison, Nayatikai sat awake. The other inmates celebrated her release, clapping her back and wishing her peace. But she was quiet. She took out her old letters, some returned, some never opened, and read them once more. Each word reminded her of who she had been, and who she had become. She closed her eyes and whispered, "Tomorrow, I face the world. Not to escape my past, but to carry it wisely." The morning sun was warm and gentle. Nayatikai's name was called. She stepped forward, a brown paper bag holding all she owned, a Bible, a comb, a folded letter, and a hand-sewn dress. As the prison gates opened, she hesitated. Then she stepped into the world, not as the bitter sister, but as a woman reborn through ashes. No one came to meet her. But she didn't expect anyone to. Her journey home would begin with her own feet. Nayatika walked the long road toward her village. Every bird call, every gust of wind, felt louder than before. She passed villages where she had once begged for herbs and silence. People stared. Some recognized her. Others whispered. But Nayatika walked with her head high. Regret was still in her bones, but it no longer controlled her steps. At the edge of the village, she reached the familiar homestead. The gate hadn't changed. The same mango tree stood tall. Her feet stopped. Then the door opened, and Wima stepped out, belly heavy with child. She froze when she saw Nayatika. For a long moment, neither spoke. Wind rustled between them. Then Wima opened the gate and said, "You're here." Wima made tea. Nayatika didn't ask to help. She sat, her eyes taking in everything, the same red cups, the same woven chairs. It felt like a dream she didn't deserve. "I don't know what to say," Nayatika began. "You already said it," Wima replied. "In your letters. And in your silence." Waya entered quietly, gave her a nod, and said nothing more. Sometimes, words aren't the path. Presence is. That evening, Wima took her to a small room in the back. "You can sleep here," she said. "For as long as you need." The room was small but clean. It smelled of soap and soil. Nayatika sat on the bed, feeling waves of memory crash against her chest. This was the house she had once tried to destroy. Now it was offering her rest. 2 weeks later, Wima went into labor. Waya rushed her to the clinic. Nayatika stayed back, pacing, praying, crying. When they returned, they were holding a baby girl wrapped in a pink shawl. "Her name is Tumeni," Wima said. "It means hope." Nayatika smiled through tears. "She is the beginning I never gave you. Let me be her guardian. Let me earn this peace." Months passed. Nayatika helped care for the baby, tilled the soil, cleaned, fetched water. Slowly, the village began to soften toward her. The land she once coveted was now hers to walk freely on, but she never asked for ownership again. Wima offered to give her a portion of it. Nayatika shook her head. "If I ever own anything again, let it be trust. That's more valuable than land." One evening, Nayatika was invited to speak at the local women's circle. She shared her story, every painful part. Some wept. Some gasped. But many saw themselves in her story. The poison wasn't just in powder. It was in gossip, in jealousy, in silence. "You don't have to drink bitterness," she said. "Spit it out before it eats you." Her voice was no longer sharp. It was healing. Years later, Tumeni grew into a bright, joyful girl. She called Nayatika auntie, not knowing the dark legacy she had inherited. One day, the girl asked, "Why do you always smile when you're sad?" Nayatika replied, "Because my pain taught me how to plant flowers where thorns once grew." She stood beneath the mango tree with Wima, now both older and wiser. The roots of bitterness had been pulled. And in their place, something gentle had grown.